Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Sharlee Dixon. Joining me today is Sui Wong. Sui is an award-winning neurologist and neuro-ophthalmologist based in London, with a focus on integrating mindfulness and lifestyle medicine into brain health. In addition to her clinical work, Dr. Wong is an active neuroscience researcher dedicated to translating research into practical, person-centered solutions. She advocates for a holistic approach to health and volunteers her expertise with several charities, including the Visual Snow Initiative and IIH UK. With over 20 years of experience, Dr. Wong combines her clinical background with her lifestyle medicine qualifications to improve both brain and body health for her patients. We're excited to have Sui with us today to discuss her journey into neurology and the creation of her brain health practice, discussing the integration of mindfulness, lifestyle medicine, and a comprehensive toolkit for brain health to balance the autonomic nervous system and foster behavioral change. Welcome to the show, Sui.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Charlie.
Awesome, thanks. And so, as we get started today, can you share with us about your journey into neurology and what inspired you to create the brain health practice?
Thank you. My journey into neurology came from, can you imagine, the earliest memory of actually just wanting to be a doctor? That is my earliest memory. I was, of course, influenced by the fact that my late father, was a doctor, and I was very inspired by the kind of stories he told me when I was growing up, how much he was helping people. And I thought, this is just such an amazing profession. You can help people, and it's so
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So that's my only memory. So the journey started then, if you ask how it started. But I will truncate it so it's not such a long story. But basically, I had the great honor and privilege to get into medical school with my parents, nonstop working and saving money, got me to medical school, great teachers. And I realized I just loved physician medicine. So that would be internal medicine. And from there, it went into neurology because it's fascinating and we can do things to help people. And also, we can help other colleagues because oftentimes I realized that when people got admitted to hospital, there's always a question of what do we have to do next? And when it came to neurological conditions, it's just a bit more tricky sometimes. So I thought, okay, it's great. I can contribute here. And so that's how it got into neurology. And as I have been practicing now, so I became a doctor 25 years ago. So 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And throughout this time, over the past 15 years, I really got into a lifestyle based approach. And it started from me realizing that I was, you know, really stressed with all the training, not having chance to take good care of myself, but of course, doing high level work as a medical doctor. And that's when I realized that, okay, there are things that I can do that really improves my health better. And it starts from many different aspects, from cutting out ultra processed foods. I was at one stage just constantly having the soda pop and grabbing chocolate bars from the vending machine because my morning clinic molded into the afternoon clinic by 7 p.m. The
Wow.
patient from 2 hours ago is still waiting. It's just
Wow.
exhausting. So and that's kind of it all evolved, and I realized that kind of how I nourished myself, how I took better care of myself, really made a difference to how I felt as a doctor. And also, I then translated all that with my family. And it made me wonder why, if this is such an important thing for myself and my family, why is it not part of the conversation in the clinics? And that's how it evolved. From that point on, it was a case of getting certifications to deliver evidence-based lifestyle approach to medical care in neurology.
Okay.
And that's how it evolved to the brain health practice. I think that was your question, how it became brain health
Was
practice. Brain health practice is really a passion project, so to speak. I feel so passionately about this because I work in a National Health Service, so that's a publicly funded system in the
Mhm.
United Kingdom. And I'm so grateful that, my colleagues, my medical colleagues have been really supportive when I started to bring lifestyle medicine into my neurology practice, developing group services where people develop peer-to-peer support. They were getting better. There was this huge empowerment piece to it.
Yeah.
And then in my clinics, in the one-to-one discussions, whether it's on migraines or other autoimmune conditions, lifestyle was a big part of that. And over the years, a lot of people have told me that they've benefited a lot from it, and my patients had transformative changes. And that's when I thought, oh, maybe I should be doing more. So, how do I share more of this approach? I was very surprised because when I start talking to my colleagues who are general practitioners, other physicians, they go, oh, okay, this is interesting. Okay, I guess if you're talking about in this way, we can talk about it as well. So there is this
Mhm.
whole ripple effect where it is people who want to have this from my clinics, the patients, to my colleagues who find that, oh, actually, this is quite useful conversations. That's how it evolved to me wanting to deliver online programs. So that's the brain health practice. And then also
Okay.
writing books for more of the public with a wider reach. So it's with this
Okay.
bigger mission.
Nice. And so when you mentioned the brain health practice, it sounds like it's a comprehensive type of a toolkit for brain health. Can you elaborate more on what that program is like? What does it bring into? Like, what are the other lifestyle medicine focuses that you look at there?
Yes. So the Brain Health Practice is my platform, is my online platform to
Okay.
deliver a comprehensive lifestyle-based approach. And I'm starting off focusing at the moment on people with migraines. So the programs I deliver is based on an approach called BRAINS. So BRAINS is in two parts. The first part of the BRAINS stands for brain resilience. So it builds brain resilience. And the second half of it is the autonomic nervous system, balancing the autonomic nervous system. So the building brain resilience include things such as sleep, improving quality of sleep. How do we deal with that? Nutrition, which comes with nutrients and metabolic health, gut health, physical activity, mindset, and building brain, the balancing the autonomic nervous system would be things that's related to breath work, yoga, visualization, mind body practices, so that people can bring in those two parts. So the holistic part, yes, there is a lifestyle medicine part, and there is also another kind of more integrative approach part. So what I didn't mention yet, which we mentioned in passing before the recording start, is I'm also a yoga teacher. So, as part of all this journey about 15 years ago, one of the things that got me into mindfulness was the movement practice. So I was very fortunate to have started yoga and then realized that the mindfulness approach to movement was what really drew me in, and that really settled a lot of my brain and my body and my mind. And that's how
Mhm.
kind of it evolved to thinking about our autonomic nervous system, again bringing in the neurological side, where our autonomic nervous system, as you know, Sharlee, is to do with automatic functions. And for your
Yeah.
listeners who may be familiar with this concept of, we have the fight or flight part, the sympathetic that gets us up and going in the morning, but in its extreme form, you know, fight or flight. And then you have the other part, the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, and it's not that one is bad or one is good, it's the balance of both. So that's how I bring in the breath work and the yoga and such things.
Nice. Okay. And so then with all of the research that you've done and in the training that you've done in mindfulness and yoga, can you talk a bit more with us about how those have an impact on the brain network and neurological conditions and maybe even helping to relieve them? Things like migraines, like you mentioned.
Yes, yes. So the migraine aspect, I find it is very much in practice. So a lot of people who are suffering from a lot of migraines, their body and their brains are depleted, exhausted, depleted, and they are in a chronic high stress situation oftentimes. So we start bringing in breathwork practices, and breathwork practices that encourages the rest and relax part of the nervous system to ramp up a bit more. So it balances the other part of the fight or flight. So there is both a better balance. And sometimes at the very start of a migraine attack, I show people how to create some breath practices that's oftentimes shorten the attacks. And this would be a case of breathing out, the ratio of in breath to out breath, whereby the in breath, let's say, is 4 counts, and breathing out would be, say, 8 counts. So it's a longer out breath than in breath. with some pauses in between so that they don't hyperventilate. So that's kind of approach and more of the daily practice. So when we start talking about things like regulating sleep, there is the need to settle down the nervous system so they get better quality sleep, and also a morning movement practice. And that could be a mindful movement practice, that could be yoga, for example. So that would be, say, on migraines, based on your direct question. I've been doing quite a bit of research on mindfulness in another neurological condition. And that's really exciting. So that would be a case of, from this research, I've been finding this mindfulness practice can change the brain networks in a neurological context. Yeah, so it's really exciting. It shows really that all this is to show the potential of how we can use so-called simple tools. They're actually straightforward tools and really foundational, and these tools are within our reach. And it's about how we bring them into our lives in appropriate ways, and could be just little ones at a time, to really enhance brain health and well-being.
Wow, wow. That's really interesting. Like you mentioned, I was really thinking, like, God, these seem like really simple techniques that really anybody can learn. And you said it at the end, like these are simple things, and it just needs to create a good foundation that we can really go back to. So
Yes, absolutely.
speaking, you mentioned this during your when we discussed your brain's framework. You mentioned gut health, and so
Mm,
something that's been discussed a lot in America recently in recent years is probiotics and lifestyle
mm.
changes to improve gut health, and maybe that there is some connection to brain health. Can you talk to us a bit more about that interaction or that connection between gut health and brain health, and then also what roles do mindfulness and lifestyle changes play in improving that?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that people are really catching on to this.
Mhm.
We do have a direct connection from the brain to the gut, and we also have indirect connections. The direct connections come from the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is nerve number 10 that goes all the way from the brain to the gut. And of course, it travels to other parts of the body as well. So this cranial nerve is a real traveler. So its name,
Right.
vagus, come from the word wandering. And it's really because it's the wandering cranial nerve. We have 12
Right.
cranial nerves, and the other cranial nerves stay within the head area. But cranial nerve number 10 loves to wander. It goes all the way to the gut, goes to the heart, goes to the chest, goes to the
Wow.
face. And it's amazing. So you have the direct connections. And so, for example, if there was some chemicals that's created, so for example, if we are eating foods and there's a breakdown of the foods into beneficial chemicals, such as something called short chain fatty acids or other breakdowns of chemicals, it could enter our gut and could go through with the vagus nerve towards the brain. So there is a direct connection, and it goes also from the brain to the gut. So you may have heard of the concept of people going, "Oh, I feel butterflies in my stomach."
Mhm.
Or they could have this other concept going, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit nervous. I can feel it in my gut. Time for exam. Ooh, bowels a bit loose." So, there is a
Yeah.
clear kind of a connection with how
Interesting.
we feel in our gut. So there is the kind of direct, and then there's the more indirect, the kind of things that's absorbed, the neurotransmitters. It just floats around our blood. It goes to our brain as well. You may be surprised to know that serotonin, the so-called feel-good hormone,
Mhm.
it's a lot of it is produced in the gut.
Really?
Yeah. So all this is really to say that our body systems are very linked. So now we're talking about the gut and brain health, because in this conversation we are focusing on the brain, and it really
Yeah.
talks about how in our body it's good to think about systems, and it's thinking about integration and the influence on one another. And so this is the example about gut and brain. So that's why it's important for people to consider what they're eating and how it
Mhm.
impacts their gut and how it improves well-being. So for example, when we look at the gut microbiome, so the gut microbiome would be the microorganisms like the bacteria in the gut, where some people think of good or bad bacteria, but it's the kind
Mhm.
of things that could really benefit our health, and also the kind of things that's needed for our food to digest. And what we eat really can promote one type or the other. So, for example, if somebody's eating a lot of ultra processed foods that's with a lot of emulsifiers and preservatives or a lot of hidden sugars, it
Mhm.
can really promote the so called bad bugs, compared to, let's say, if somebody has a more whole food based diet with lots of different types of vegetables of different colors, plants, whole foods, spices, beans, various things. And you really kind of, it's almost like it's the fertilizer to the garden. And think of the
Mm,
microbiome like the plants. And for us to
okay.
feed our microbiome, we need to take care of it, like how we give fertilizer, how we water our garden, and then we can flourish. And with that, we can break down foods in a way that creates beneficial compounds, such as I talked about the short chain fatty acids and other type of beneficial compounds that could benefit. Like it's got anti-inflammatory impact effects, it's got kind of mood boosting effects, stable brain energy effects. So these are a lot of the things that we are starting to understand more.
Got you. That is so fascinating to me because again, I'd heard these things for years, but the
Yes.
way you just described it really helped me to understand that vagus nerve and the
Yes.
connection that it has between our gut and our brains and what we put in our body really does fuel our brain. That's really interesting to me. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
And of course, one of the things is so interesting. I talk about ultra processed foods because sadly,
Mhm.
what started off as great intentions
Yeah.
when there was this move for people to go out and work, which is great. Women go out and work, really contribute and have different roles in societies. Then
Yeah.
everybody has less time with
Mhm.
cooking and things. And of
Yeah.
course, that's when it came in, where there is manufacturing processes to where people can just buy convenience food. Sadly, it also evolved in an unhelpful way to become a case of producing foods that's not really foods, foods that
Right.
really stimulate appetite, foods that's really artificial and creates not just increase in appetite, it disrupts our health, changes people's cravings for sugar and their
Yep.
weight, and also it changes their gut health, it changes their mood, it changes a lot of things without us really realizing. And now in the US, certainly in the UK as well, and a lot of countries where we think, oh, great, we have great conveniences. And sometimes there is this other darker side, the ultra processed foods.
Yep. Yeah. And it definitely has a huge impact. But then on the other side of it, like you said, it was created for a really good purpose.
Yes,
But then
yes,
it created these other things that they're not necessarily good for us. And we're kind of now stuck trying to add in things. Like I mentioned, a lot of things in America that we've been doing are prebiotics,
yes,
probiotics, maybe
yes,
even
yes, yes.
more fermented foods. Like I've been drinking kombucha and things like that.
Yes,
So,
love
yeah.
it, love it. And that's why I'm loving coming to podcasts like yours here,
Mhm.
is because of how we can use good quality knowledge to empower people. And these things
Absolutely.
don't have to be expensive. So, for example, certainly a lot of ultra processed food idea is also for convenience, for cost, and all that. So, I give little tips. So, for example, beans. Beans is a great one. You can, sorry, I'm gonna, yes, beans. Beans is a great one. You can buy them in bulk. You can buy
Mhm.
organic beans in bulk, so it reduces the cost. You can soak them and you can sprout them over a few days. And then you create a lot of nutrition and it's quick to cook. It costs so little and it's really convenient. And I also started making a little snack for my nephew and he loves it. So there's this expression. Do you have it in the US? But my nephew says, "Ooh, it's insane," meaning it's amazing. Do you have that? It's insane, meaning it's amazing. So it's really
Yes.
simple. So
Yes,
all I
yes.
do is I soak the chickpeas overnight. I cook it, or for people who don't want to cook it, they can just buy pre-bought chickpeas, and I just roast it for depending on the temperature and the size, the portion. But for mine, I make a portion 15 minutes. And then as it comes out, it's crispy. I just break one small square of chocolate. So it gives this coating and it's a bit savory. I sprinkle a bit of salt and the verdict, it's insane, meaning very good.
Nice, okay. I will have to try that because if it was child approved, then that means it must be delicious.
Yes, 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 yes. So another child also approved, my 5-year-old niece. She's the
Nice.
cutest one. And she says, Auntie, can you give me more of this? So there you go. Different
Ooh.
age range. Uh-huh.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. I'll have to try that and let you know how it went.
Yes, please do.
Absolutely. And so one of the other things that you mentioned, which I also know is incredibly important to just our health in general, and it gives us, revives us, is sleep. And so I know
Yes.
that is something that you mentioned as a cornerstone of your program. Can you share some practical strategies for improving sleep quality and how that improvement can support brain resilience?
Oh, absolutely. Sleep is foundational. Oftentimes, I start in my brain's program with sleep firstly, because actually, sadly, in the modern society, sleep tends to be really depleted because
Yeah.
of, we have so many demands, usually from work and family and sorting
Mhm.
out lots of things. And there is also, lights, electronics, lots of distractions. So I start off by sharing the importance of sleep, about how it's really foundational for our brain health. And then I talk about how we can start to balance it. So the first thing I usually talk in practical terms, people oftentimes ask me how many hours sleep they need. And I would start off by asking them, how many hours are you getting now? And then the average add up would be 7 to 9 hours. That's the average. So of course that means there is a range, and each
Yeah.
individual will come to know. So the technique I share, first tip is decide on your waking time. And for a period of 2 weeks, if you can, stick to that same waking time. And then count back the number of hours that you think you need and sleep at the same time. For 2 weeks, keep to that same schedule. So by the end of the 2 weeks, most people would have caught up with some sleep deprivation before. So then that doesn't influence us with thinking, oh, I need more sleep, because actually one may be catching up with sleep deprivation. So after about 2 weeks, they wake up and they know, okay, how much sleep do I need? And then it may be still feeling pretty sleep deprived, quite sleepy during the day, kind of work back, maybe add another half an hour and see how they go for another couple of weeks. And then that's number one, to figure out how much they need. Number two, asking somebody to wake up at the same time every morning when they're working so hard in the week, waking up at 6
Mhm.
a.m. and me asking them on Saturday or Sunday to wake up at 6 a.m.
Yes.
Whew, big
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, my eyes got big. You said.
Exactly. It's a big ask. But actually,
Mhm.
the way in is schedule in a nap. I actually prescribe naps. So have a half an hour nap, so not more than
Okay.
half an hour on the Saturday and Sunday. If somebody's working from home, I've had people certainly be able to do a half an hour nap in the during their lunch break. Or if they can't do a nap, they can put in a yoga nidra soundtrack. So it's like a body scan that helps them get into deep state of relaxation. It's like something called yogic sleep. So it's almost like they're having a rest-ish sleep. And really, it's really rejuvenating. So I oftentimes add in all this. And oftentimes people may want to decide on when they start to do this little test experiment. And I say for everybody, question everything I say, test it out for yourself. Personalize it for yourself, because
Okay.
we all have different circumstances and different health situations. So, you know, oftentimes that kind of those things work. And then the third thing is waking up in the morning and just get to some movement and bright light that really signals to the
Okay.
body that it's time to wake up. Because it is the hardest challenge in my mentorship programs. So I do a mentorship programs based on brains. And when I start off with this, the first couple of weeks is tough, but then once people get through it, they get into a rhythm, they really find, wow, it is really improving. This is really improving. But there are lots of little things to troubleshoot, which is actually why I wrote a little workbook called Sleep Better to Thrive, with this in mind, where people kind of work through week by week, little things. And there is like a 30-day challenge in that workbook to improve
Okay.
quality of sleep. It's based on the principles of sleep hygiene, with lots of tips within that of how people can tweak and adjust accordingly.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Americans are increasingly concerned about mental health, with nearly 9 in 10 voters seeing it as a crisis. Mental Health First Aid provides crucial training to identify, understand, and respond to mental health and substance use challenges. Gain the skills and confidence to offer life-saving assistance. We offer courses for individuals, groups, and organizations of all sizes, including specialized training for veterans, law enforcement, EMS, and educators. Visit mentalhealthfirstaid.org or email hello@mentalhealthfirstaid.org to schedule your training and make a difference in your community.
Okay. Because that was really going to be my next question. Well, what if I have trouble sleeping? And so then
Yes.
how do I work on that? Would your book be able to assist us through something like that?
Certainly, there are some things that will help with troubleshooting. And of course, it also signposts for people to where to seek further help for
Okay.
the sleep guidance. So yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes when people go to a sleep clinic, the first thing that they have to cover would be sleep hygiene practices. So by the time they get to that kind of clinic, if they need it, this book is made. This book would have really moved them forward a lot, because then they would have done the sleep hygiene things. By the time they speak to the healthcare providers, they can go, all right, okay, this is helpful now. This is not a sleep hygiene. As the aspect that needs to be done has been done, and then they can move forward. And in answer to your question about what's the benefit for brain health, there are lots of benefits from sleep for brain health. We know that in sleep, we cycle through different stages, and the stages include the rapid eye movement, or REM, and the other stages of sleep, which includes light sleep and deep sleep. And what's really exciting in the recent years is that we know in deep sleep, there is a system that gets activated. It's a detoxification system called the glymphatics. The glymphatics is like the lymphatics. You may have heard of lymphatics of the body.
Yeah.
So glymphatics is the same concept, spelled in the same way except with a G in front of it. Is to do with, and deep sleep, the way the brain cells start to form, it starts to create like little ways, like channels, so-called, for there to be a flushing effect to clear toxins. So this is really, really beneficial, where, deep quality sleep can help with detoxification pathways, reducing risks of other burdens like, accumulation of certain things like plaques, so-called plaques, for, risks of neurodegenerative conditions. Deep sleep is also really important for memory consolidation. And then you also have the REM, the rapid eye movement, which is also important for kind of consolidating cognitive functions. It's also important for mood regulation and emotional regulation. So it really helps if people have a regular pattern of sleep, which is why I start off with going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, so that somebody can really build and train their inner body clock called the circadian rhythm, for them to then improve each stage of sleep to gain the maximum benefits for their brain health and well-being.
Awesome. Okay. First of all, I will make sure I take note that Dr. Wong says that I need a nap on the weekends.
Yes, doctor prescribed.
This prescribed nap that we'll have on the
Yes,
weekends now.
yes.
When you mentioned though 30 minutes, why 30 minutes?
So, with the cycle of sleep, so when we sleep in the night, we cycle through different stages. So, a typical cycle is something like 90 to 100 minutes for an average person. So, when I say cycle, it goes from to light stage to deep stage, and then it goes to REM, and then it goes back again, light, deep, REM. So, these are the repeated cycles. And because the average is about 90 minutes, if during the daytime with the nap, if you sleep a bit too long, you could get into like a deep stage, and it's going to be really hard to wake up, and kind of feeling a bit too groggy. And also the concern is that if one sleeps too much during the day, it would affect the sleepiness in the evening.
Right.
And that's the key thing. You want to maintain the circadian rhythm, the inner body clock rhythm of sleep. So limiting to 13 minutes is enough to create a little refresh, but not enough to affect the quality of sleep at night.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So you also mentioned that your program does, of course, include yoga, as you have learned practicing yoga, breath work, and I would assume some level of visualization as well. So how do these balance the autonomic nervous system and enhance brain health?
Thank you. So I was mentioning earlier about autonomic nervous system. You have the fight or flight or sympathetic, but of course we need that. We need a little bit of that. We need that little kick up to wake up in the morning. We need to like get going for a presentation, for a deadline. So we need that little oomph. We also need to relax and just let it go. And that would be, when it's time to digest food, when it's time to ease and relax. And so the balancing of that would be a case of, for example, I was giving the example of, okay, at the start of migraine, you could start to do some breath work where you could breathe in, say, count of 4. And then I mentioned about holding. So you then hold for a count of 4, and then you breathe out for a count of 8, 6 to 8, and then you hold again for a count of 4. So it's not 4 seconds. It could be like in for 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hold 2, 3, 4, start again. Or it could be a very slow in 2, 3, 4, Hold, 2, 3, 4. It's all about the ratio. So that breath pattern will really bring to fore the parasympathetic, the rest and relax. So it kind of settles a little bit. So the vagus nerve thing that I bring in when somebody's having a lot of start of a migraine attack, or if they're feeling very anxious, we could do some tapping, for example. So I talk about how the vagus nerve also goes to the chest or the face, so they could use some cold sensation to activate the vagus stimulation of the face, for example, or they can do some tapping to feel some vibrations into their jaw, their chest, their collarbones. That's the kind of vagus thing. Or they can do some mindfulness practices. The mindfulness practices could be a mindful movement, could be a body scan practice where they are observing parts of their body. There's some audio tracks. And then there are also other types of visualization practice, like hypnosis type practices, but it doesn't have to be in its full version of hypnosis in a therapeutic session. It could be kind of closing your eyes with the breath settling and then imagining yourself looking to the horizon and then start to kind of go to a relaxation phase through visualization, like walking on a beach or the location of a person's choice. So these things are really very powerful practices indeed.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in getting started with mindfulness and yoga? I know I see a lot of things advertised about, doing some somatic yoga and Pilates and
Yes.
different types of
Yes.
body work and body movement. But how does someone get started, especially for somebody who may be skeptical about its
Yes.
benefits for brain health specifically?
So if I may,
Mhm.
I would say read this book, Mindfulness for Brain Health, because you just asked that question if somebody's skeptical.
Yes.
And in this book, I actually share some interesting data and research about the case for mindfulness for brain health. And it's written in a really simple and engaging way. So that could be the buy-in for somebody skeptical. And in fact, that book also then has got practical things that people can do. It's kind of designed to encourage a year of mindful practice through self-care surrounding. So each chapter, for the first 12 chapters, people have little things that they can do as part of this approach. And then the rest of the chapters are additional things that people can explore. So it goes from everything from breath work to visualization to parenting aspects, what kind of things when people are really in the heat of it, other things like digestive practices, mindful eating, just day to day with work, with relationships, just being present and just having more joy and peace in the day to day. So that would be a case of for people who, let's say, get curious, want to be want to investigate more of this. There is this book. There are also lots of great books on mindfulness. So then the other thing is when people want to do the practice, of course, in my book, I have some audio guides that come with it. For some people, it may be doing it together. And that's amazing. One could connect with somebody else. And that could
Mhm.
be going to a yoga class with a loved one or starting to know the local community. Say somebody's moved into a new area, they don't really know people there, going to yoga class, getting to know whether it's a community, local center and things like that. And it's just starting to chat with others. And it kind of really encourages that sense of connections. Or for some people, they may wish to do a 8-week program, for example, because they may want a specific type of structure. They may want to attend a group every week. So there are various ways in. And the key thing to say is that it doesn't have to take an hour. It doesn't have to take half an hour. With these practices, one can create mindful moments throughout the day, which is really
Mhm.
the aim of this book when I wrote Mindfulness for Brain Health, is to be able to create that sense of self-care, stability, grounding, and that connectedness for moments, mindful
Nice.
moments.
Nice. And just like you mentioned, just being able to have a moment versus I know as a lot of times we hear as busy people, like I don't really have time to add something else in, but being able to add in something that's just for a moment, as you transition
Yes.
from one part of the day to the next, sounds like can be very, very beneficial for you.
Hugely, hugely. It could be, for example, we have had a conversation with somebody, and then we feel at the end that, wow, that really was a very connecting conversation that touched
Mhm,
me. Or
mhm.
it could be that, we just had some playful laughter moments with some children, and we go, there is a sense of lightness and joy. Or it
Yeah.
could be a peaceful walk through the park, early in the morning, and this sense of that cold, the mist, the quiet, the beauty of just the flowers or the grass and the trees. So there are loads of opportunities. We could be just in the kitchen as you grab yourself a glass of water, kind of noticing, wow, actually, the sensation of water coming in when one is thirsty. Really beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, as a person, and I'm sure lots of listeners are the same way, I deal with a high stressful job. I come home and I mom and I wife, and it's a
Yes.
lot of things, and it is a very busy day most days of the week. So, for individuals dealing with high stress or other neurological conditions, how would you tailor mindfulness and lifestyle interventions to meet those specific needs?
I would say to highlight as what we were saying that it doesn't have to take an hour or half an hour, and it could start with just a little moment. And so let's say, a busy situation, and just it could be the moment of just sitting down, starting to have a meal with the family, and just this act of feeling I'm sitting, I'm in my chair,
Mm.
and just taking a moment to take one deep breath and then another slow deep breath. And after the third, noticing how the body feels. Perhaps there is some bigger sense of relaxation there, and just tasting that first bite. It could just be those moments, and it just gives a little window to these special moments. Or it could be, you know, something else like when you're doing your walk, just actually all you're doing is, okay, I have to walk to the train station. I have to walk to my car. And during that moment of walking, just notice the sensation of feet on the ground, the swinging of the arms, stretch of the body,
Mm.
the sensation of the breath, contact of the wind on the skin. Those are moments.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you for highlighting exactly what those moments can look like.
Yes.
And again, not to add something extra to your day, but really to be mindful of what is happening in every moment of the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more of trying to help people to just be aware of what's happening now.
Mhm.
And it's not just bringing a spotlight to where am I putting the spotlight. It's also that this sense of wider sense of softness, that sense of allowing, the sense of curiosity, friendliness to the whole situation. And it's about being here. And if it's a time with a lot of lots of to do things, being aware of that and saying, okay, it's okay, do this thing now. That sort of situation, just softness to it. And
Nice.
it's this quality of just being here. There's this expression where oftentimes we're living in our heads.
Mm.
We're planning. We're living in the future. What am I
Mhm.
going to do next? What do I have to do next? We're
Yep.
living in the past. Why did I say that? What did I do wrong? I should have said that. But being here in the present is like, how am I feeling now? And that kind of sense of it's just here, it's just being in the moment.
Nice. Nice. Okay. And so, as a practicing clinician, how do you empower clients or patients that have problems or barriers? How do you help them overcome those barriers to adopting these lifestyle changes? Because while they are small changes,
Yes.
it can be difficult to make such small changes.
Yes. 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 It's always about personalizing it.
Mm.
It starts with a question. It starts with understanding where somebody's at. What is their motivation? They come to me, for example, and they say, I have a lot of migraines and headaches. And then we start talking about what could be contributing. And then it may be that they say, oh, I want to. So I give them a menu of options, that sort of approach. And it could be, we talked about the brains approach, and they choose which one they want to start off with. And let's say if they want to work on sleep, and then the question is, okay, with the sleep, there is this thing about waking up at a specific time. Is it about kind of taking in naps? Is it about having bright lights in the mornings, doing some movement activity in the mornings? And then it goes with what somebody may feel, oh, they're drawn to. So it oftentimes starts with the conversation of firstly the motivation, and then based on the motivation, what kind of things are possible. And from there, which one attracts most, is more attractive to them. And just building on that. And it could be, for example, let's say if somebody says, okay, they want to start doing exercise in the morning, and it could be just putting on their shoes to go out for a walk around the block, and that's it, and come back home. It doesn't have to be go out for a half an hour run. Do you see? It's all just, all I'm doing is I'm putting on my shoes, going out for a walk and coming back. And then it's just being consistent with that. And again, the consistency could be I will aim to do that for 3 days a week, and then aim to do that for 4 days a week. So it's building on that. And it's something that's achievable. And it's also about kind of focusing on the process. So as they're doing the process, the side effects is better well-being. And then when it focus on the process being the goal, they start feeling, wow, actually, I really enjoy doing this walk in the morning. And then before they know it, 6 months later, they may be like going for a little jog. Do you see what I
Okay.
mean? So it comes very naturally. So kind of building on that. So that's the concept.
Nice. Nice. And it really does seem like there's a certain level of emphasis on accessible types of tools and
Yes.
things that are low stigma or low activation. Like it doesn't necessarily take a ton to
Yes.
get to do it. Can you share some more examples of how your platform and your resource are able to achieve that level of accessibility?
Yes. So, for your listeners who are interested, I think the best resources I'm currently providing would be through my books, because my
Okay.
books are written very much in the style of what I've been sharing. It's all very
Mm.
practical. And that was the sweetest thing a patient told me today. I saw her, and she was one of my students in my mentorship programs as well. And she said, "Oh, I love your books because they're so practical. You know, they're so accessible." And that's a case of finding something that resonates and something that makes you think, oh, this sounds quite fun. Oh,
Yeah.
it is possible because, things are to be enjoyed. If somebody's
Mm.
doing something and they go, oh, it's a chore, there is no motivation, but they go, it sounds quite interesting. Let me give that a go and
Yeah.
let me test it out for myself. And I say to everything, do it, think of it like a little experiment and see whether you believe what I said, and then take it from there. So, that
Nice.
kind of approach of openness and curiosity and friendliness to it all.
Nice. I appreciate that. And I know listeners that are looking for something just a little different. I
Yeah.
appreciate the approach to the process, not necessarily what I need to change and all these other things, but
Yeah,
let's focus on
absolutely.
a process and it's much more practical that way, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And as I kind of peruse your website and look through it, you had a lot of interesting topics there. And you talked a lot about, or a little bit about, the visual snow syndrome and
Yes.
mindfulness based cognitive theory, which a bit is what we've been discussing. They're both pretty
Yes.
fascinating to me, and I think they would be to our listeners as well. Can you tell us a little bit about more of those studies and their implications for brain health?
Yes, so that's the one that I kind of hinted upon at the beginning about doing research in mindfulness. So, visual
Mhm.
snow syndrome is a rare condition, or it may be less rare than we think because now there has been more awareness of it. It's a neurological condition where people have a lot of vision disturbance. They see, what they call like something that looks like a snowstorm or out of tune analog television across their whole of the visual system. They see a lot of floaters, a lot of after images and lots of things like that, really disturbing their vision. When we look at their eye, it looks fine. When we scan their brain, MRI, CT scan, normal. But actually, what's going on is there is a network dysregulation. So it's like the brain's vision system is overactive, like a little software glitch, so to speak. And this concept of mindfulness, when I brought in this research study, was to test out whether we can use mindfulness to settle the brain and to change the brain pathways to treat people who have this condition. And I'm so excited because when I have this first idea in 2019, it was quite a hard sell. And actually, I just got on with it and I did most of it pro bono. And then we got the study results. And of course, we managed to get the first lot just based on patient questionnaires. And with that, we managed to get some funding for functional MRI, which is a research MRI to look at brain network connections from the charity called Visual Snow Initiative that done a lot to help people with visual snow. And, we found with that research that we could change the brain networks through this 8-week
Wow.
program. Amazing. And people rated their improvement of symptoms. So that was profound because that was the first time a study was shown to be that. Because at this stage, pretty much people will get the answers, oh, there's nothing we can do to treat this condition. And this was the first time we go, wow, we had the functional MRI showing brain changes. And now I'm in the middle of delivering what we call a randomized control trial. And for your listeners, that means that we randomly allocate people to either getting treatment or a control group so that we can do a head-to-head comparison. And so, yeah, I'm right in the middle of the randomized control trial now.
Nice, nice. I would be very interested to see or to hear about how that research turns out. I'm
Yes,
looking forward to
yes,
that.
yes.
So, what is next for you in brain health practice, and how are you planning to use online tools to expand access to your program?
Thank you. So I'm at the moment focusing on people with migraines because I feel that if I really focusing on one area, once I have reached a lot more people, then I have the opportunity to expand more to different types of situations on the online platform. So that's online, really focusing on migraines. I have my books that I've written with the idea of helping more people so it's not just people with migraines. So I mentioned about the mindfulness for brain health that's already out. And this next one, I'm so excited because it's just out. And I hope by the time your listeners hear this, it's like hot off the shelf, a sweet
Nice.
spot for brain health. And this,
Nice.
oh, I love this book so much because all these things I write about, I've been talking about it for like so many years with my patients in the clinic. And also I talk with friends and my family, of course, but we are talking about the kind of questions that come, people asking and all the challenges. So I put it into this book and Sweet Spot. Sweet Spot is about blood sugar balance, why it matters, how the swings of blood sugar can affect us, and how this links in with this condition called insulin resistance or pre-diabetes, and how we can avoid getting swings and crashes in blood sugar, and how that could impact mood, how it could impact well-being, how it impacts brain health, inflammation, and then it shows really practical strategies about what they can do, like from the nutrition side to whether we fast. So I gave some tips about intermittent fasting. Again, also very popular at the moment. I
Mhm.
talk about physical activity. I talk about sleep. So lots of kind of lifestyle related aspects to improve brain is the blood sugar balance, metabolic health. And there is even a 12-week challenge within that at the end of the book. Just that for people who want to like feel that motivation and momentum, they can do the 12-week challenge and gain extra benefits.
Nice, nice. I appreciate that. It seems like most of your books, or at least a couple of your books that you've mentioned, have a level of a challenge in that. So I think that
Yes.
makes readers really want to participate even more. I like that.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah.
So the books are on Amazon if people
Okay.
search for it. And also, if they want to connect with me, they can connect with me on my website. So my website is drsuiwongmd.com, drsuiwongmd.com. And what I hope your listeners would do is they sign up to my Thursday tips. So every Thursday, Sharlee, I write a very short newsletter. It's only it's a 1 minute read where I share bite-sized brain health tips to thrive. And so it shares 3 tips and leaves the reader to think of one question. Thursday tips. I hope they sign up so they can find out through my website.
Nice. So the Thursday tips that you can sign up on your website, you said?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And so before we go today, if listeners could take away one key message about mindfulness and brain health, what would you want it to be?
I would like them to know that it's part of taking care of themselves. And taking care of themselves means that they can be the best version of themselves. And that is so important with being able to feel, whether they want to be a better mother, a better daughter, wife, or son, or husband, or, better person in the community, to feel the sense of bigger purpose. And it's a case of it starts with taking care of ourselves.
Mhm. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Well, sweet, I have truly enjoyed speaking with you today. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you so much, Charlie. It's such a pleasure. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks. And thank you to our listeners for taking the time to join us. Before you go, we'd love your help. Please leave a review and share the podcast with a friend. By spreading the word, you help us grow and reach more people, allowing others to discover the valuable insights shared in each episode. Thank you for being such an important part of the Behavioral Health Today community. As always, the resources for this episode and an archive of all of our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. And we look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.